Once upon a time, Medusa's face was considered the crowning jewel of the mortal world. In the age before marble statues defined our standards of beauty, her golden hair was the signature feature that typified the pre-Hellenic ideal, a radiance that represented life, vitality, and the favor of the sea gods. But to possess that perfection, Medusa paid a price that no history book likes to dwell on. She did not paint her face with lead, but she was painted by the poets as a villain. She was stripped of her humanity, violated in a sanctuary, and then gifted a defense mechanism that the world conveniently mistook for a curse. Her beauty did not just fade, it was weaponized, turning her from a priestess into a creature that could freeze blood and bone with a single glance. Welcome to Siren Academy. Today we are returning to the island of the Gorgons to ask why a woman's desperate need for protection was rewritten as a declaration of war. But before we step into the temple, a brief invitation. If you find yourself drawn to the strange, the forgotten, and the misunderstood history of the world, please consider subscribing to the Academy. Now let us look at the monster who was never the aggressor. The story of Medusa is usually told as a creature feature. It is a simple, linear quest. A hero needs a trophy, a monster needs killing, and the gods provide the tools. But if we peel back the layers of heroic propaganda, we find that she was a woman who was dangerous only because she refused to be conquered again. To understand the end of her life, we must look at the beginning. In the ancient genealogies, Medusa was born to Phorcys and Ceto, primordial sea deities who dwelled in the deep, dark places of the ocean. She was one of 3 sisters, the Gorgons. But unlike her immortal sisters, Stheno and Euryale, Medusa was born with a fatal defect: mortality. She could age, she could bleed, and crucially, she could die. This vulnerability made her unique among her kin, and perhaps it was this fragility that led her to the temple of Athena. Medusa became a priestess. In the ancient world, this was a position of safety and status. It meant she was under the protection of the goddess of wisdom and war. She lived within the temple walls, tending the sacred fires, her famous hair likely bound up in the service of the divine. She was untouchable. Until she wasn't. The sea god Poseidon saw her. The myths often gloss over this moment with words like romance or seduction. But the context of the temple setting tells a darker story. Poseidon did not woo her. He pursued her into the one place she should have been safe. He assaulted her on the floor of Athena's sanctuary. It was an act of dominance, not just over the woman, but over Athena herself. And here is where the tragedy turns into absurdity. Athena, the wise strategist, did not turn her spear against her uncle Poseidon. He was too powerful, a fundamental pillar of the cosmos. Instead, the goddess turned her wrath upon the victim. Athena blamed Medusa for the desecration. She decided that if Medusa's beauty was the catalyst for the gods' violence, then that beauty had to be destroyed. Athena transformed the priestess. The hair that had been her pride was twisted into a nest of hissing, venomous serpents. Her skin, once soft, was hardened into scales or turned the color of a corpse. And then came the gaze. Athena ensured that no man could ever look at Medusa with desire again, for to meet her eyes was to be turned instantly to stone. We are taught to see this as a punishment, a cruel exile that sent Medusa fleeing to the lonely island of Sarpedon. But consider the utility of the curse. For a woman who had just been overpowered, the ability to stop any living thing in its tracks is not a burden. It is a shield. It is the ultimate boundary. Look at me, and you die. It guaranteed that she would never be touched without her permission again. For years, Medusa lived in this exile. We can imagine the quiet of that island, the wind whistling through the dry grass, the sound of the ocean that had sired her but failed to protect her. She did not hunt. She did not raid villages. She simply existed, surrounded by the statues of the few foolish men who had tried to disturb her peace. She was a monster by definition, but she was behaving like a hermit. But in mythology, a woman who wants to be left alone is a problem that must be solved. Enter Perseus. He is the snow-white prince of this story, the golden boy. He was sent on a quest by King Polydectes, a man who wanted Perseus dead so he could pursue Perseus's mother. The king demanded the head of the Gorgon, a task that was supposed to be impossible. Perseus, however, had the advantage of divine intervention. The gods of Olympus treated his quest like a sport. Athena gave him a polished shield to use as a mirror. Hermes gave him winged sandals and a curved sword capable of slicing through immortal flesh. Hades, or the nymphs of the West, lent him a helm of invisibility. When Perseus arrived at the island, he did not fight Medusa. The art we see in museums often shows a dynamic battle, a clash of sword and claw. But the text tells us a different story. Perseus found the Gorgons sleeping. There is no glory in what happened next. Hovering in the air on borrowed sandals, invisible to the naked eye, and guiding his hand by the reflection in a borrowed shield, Perseus descended upon the sleeping woman. Medusa never saw him. She never had the chance to use her terrible gaze. She was executed in her sleep, her head severed from her body, before she could even wake to defend herself. From her bleeding neck, 2 children sprang forth, Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor, the warrior with the golden sword. These were the children of Poseidon, the result of the assault in the temple, finally born in the moment of her death. Even her end was defined by what had been done to her years before. But the story of Medusa does not end with her death. In fact, she became more powerful as an object than she ever was as a person. Perseus kept her head. He placed it in a magical bag, the kibyssus. He used it as a weapon on his journey home. When the Titan Atlas refused him hospitality, Perseus showed him the head, and Atlas became a mountain range. When he found the princess Andromeda chained to a rock, he used the head to kill the sea monster, threatening her. When he returned to King Polydectes, the man who had sent him to die, Perseus pulled the head out one last time, turning the entire court into a silent hall of stone. Medusa's gaze still worked. The power remained, even without the soul behind it. Eventually, Perseus gave the head to Athena. And this is the final, strange twist of the knife. Athena, who had cursed Medusa, who had blamed her and engineered her death, took the severed head and mounted it upon her own shield, the Aegis. If you look at statues of Athena, you will often see the face of Medusa on her chest. The Gorgoneion. In the ancient world, this image was used as a symbol of protection. It was carved into city gates, painted on the bottom of drinking cups, and baked into roof tiles. It was an apotropaic device, a symbol used to ward off evil. It screamed to the world, "Do not come closer." It is a profound irony. The woman who was branded a monster became the face of safety. The woman who was exiled for her wickedness was used to protect the holiest places in Greece. It suggests that deep down, the ancients understood the true nature of her power. It was not malicious. It was defensive. It was the terrifying face of a woman who had drawn a line in the sand. When we look at Medusa today, we shouldn't see a villain. We should see a tragedy of errors, a story of a woman caught in the crossfire of divine egos. We see the lead makeup that ate away the skin, and the snake hair that isolated the soul. We see the desperate attempts to be beautiful, to be safe, to be perfect, and the terrible cost of failing to please the powers that be. Medusa was never the villain. She was simply a woman who learned the hardest lesson of the ancient world. If you cannot be the hero, you must become the horror. Because at least the horror gets to survive, even if it is only as a face on a shield, staring forever at a world that refused to look her in the eye. Siren Academy exists for stories like this. The ones that never quite sit still. You're always welcome to return.